It Together with Lynn Greene talk show is a positive way to start your day. Ready for some encouragement?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pumped. Let's let the healing begin.
Come be inspired, hear moving stories, even laugh out loud.
Can't make heads or tail of what I'm saying.
Just incomprehensible.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You'll hear real people doing real things to make a real impact.
You are heroes every day.
Hear honest, compassionate, engaging issues you care about.
You see people come together to do good in our community, and the more we come together, the more good we can do.
Listen in and get started on redesigning your life and hear what's positive in Greater Manchester. Here's your happy host, Lynn Greene.
Good morning, friends in Greater Manchester. Welcome to In It Together. We are so glad that you've tuned in. If you'd like to find us on the web, you can go to inittogether.net, listen live, watch your previous shows, even link to our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you like and follow us, you'll see that we are bringing out the best in people to influence positive change in this community and beyond. Today is The Good Life, and typically The Good Life is with yours truly. And it's really about not just making a living, but learning to make the life that we were created to make and to live. So today we're going to be talking about taking responsibility for our own happiness. So we all know that life doesn't always seem happy. There's a lot of reasons for that, but there's also a way to learn how to navigate that in a way that we can take responsibility for that and find greater happiness in our life. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back right after this brief message. Stay tuned.
Mark Major knows that great coaches need constant training to be effective. As a certified coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell team, Mark can help you identify and activate your personal and professional goals. If you seek to do more and be more, look up Mark on the web at johnmaxwellgroup.com/MARC-Major or call 603-674-6818. Mark Major, growing leaders and adding value. CrossNet Inc. offers computer and IT services for commercial clients as well as local personal users. We create tailor-made plans for your business's unique needs, from computer repairs to managing networks, servers, and desktops. CrossNet Inc. offers managed services, data backups, virus protection, web filtering, and more. For more information, go to crossnetinc.com or call for your personalized IT services today at 603-589-2520. CrossNet Inc. IT services that keep your business running when you're on the run.
Hi, I'm Bob Bola, Chief Instructor of Defensive Strategies and anchor of the Personal Safety segment, where we talk about personal protection, situational awareness, and home defense. Tune in every Thursday at 9 a.m. and refuse to be a victim. Only on In It Together with Lynn Greene.
Back to In It Together, kicking off The Good Life this morning with yours truly. Hope you're having a happy Monday so far. Isn't that what the most important thing about life is to be happy? I don't know about you, but I've been challenged more times than I care to talk about. And so today, I really, in all of the shows of The Good Life, is really about topics that I've helped clients to overcome to have greater success in fulfillment in their lives, but also myself. I never try to teach something that I haven't walked through myself. I have challenges just like the next guy. And so what I like to do is just try to give you some tools in your toolbox to help you to navigate it better. So a lot of what we talk about on The Good Life, like I said, is not about just making a living, but creating the life that we want and that we were designed to have. So, today as we're talking about taking responsibility for our own happiness, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. There have been times where I haven't taken responsibility for my own happiness. As a matter of fact, it can, we can all do that like maybe once a day, but the question becomes is how long do we stay there? That's the question, because we really do choose our experience. We've heard people say, doesn't matter what happens to you, it's really how you go through it. And it's true, because we can go through things hard and we can go through things the best possible way. And that's always my choice, and that's what I like to help other people do as well. So the main reason I think that we don't always take responsibility for our own happiness is, first, is, like I said, we don't always know what the problem is. And sometimes we may be used to being what I call institutionalized as as we grow up in life. We're always told what to do, and then kind of breaking away from that becomes a really difficult thing as you're a child and you get into the next levels of grade and things like that. Al, you want to make sure that's plugged in all the way? I don't know if it is. It looks like it's out a little. Sorry about that. Just want to make sure that everybody's hearing this morning. Okay. Looks like it's fine. Okay, well, just look at it from here for me. So having the mindset of maybe that I'm not happy, or that things around me are really the cause, and they may be the initial cause, but really what we've said is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Really what it does is it builds character. It's all about character building, and our parents, our teachers, friends, even family members at times, without maybe knowing, maybe based on their own fears or whatever, may put expectations on us, and then unknowingly steal our dreams, and inevitably, because we don't have our dreams anymore, we're not happy. And that's always the thing. It's the fear of not being able to have what we think we should have, be where we think we should be, do what we think we should do. I think fear is one of the biggest culprits of what steals our happiness. But the thing that was a hard realization for me is it isn't without our permission. And so I had to mull that over for a while, because I really don't, to take responsibility, you have to be able to admit to yourself where the problem lies. And the truth is it begins and ends with us. I'm not saying that sometimes people, don't contribute to that, and they do, but there are ways that we can deal with that. I'm reminded, as I was writing some notes for today's show, I was reminded of some of the old Dr. Phil shows where he always said that we teach people how to treat us, and he's absolutely right. It takes a real shift in our thinking to realize that nobody but us is responsible for our happiness. That means that we have to decide, okay, I guess I'm not going to let this upset me anymore. Because I always tell people, I have a group that we have a regular group once a week here, and one of the things we've gone through probably for quite some time now is always look for negative patterns in your life that keep reappearing. Sometimes something happens, it's an isolated incident, it doesn't bother us. But sometimes we keep seeing, why do I keep running into this same problem? This is no different for me. For some people, like if you ever went to an interview and they ask you, what's your strength? You can tell them, oh, well, I'm really strong at communication. I'm great with people. And then when they ask you what your weakness is, people have a really hard time with that. I know I did. And one of the things that I used to think of is, what? My weakness appears to be a strength. So think about that for a second. Sometimes the problem isn't necessarily a natural weakness, but it's a strength overdone, and that becomes a weakness. So for me, and this isn't bragging on myself, this is actually me taking responsibility for taking something good and bringing it too far, is I tend to think the best in people. I tend to be generous with my time, with my things, and I share everything I have pretty much to a point where sometimes it's detrimental to me. It's detrimental to what I'm trying to do, what God has called me to do. And so that's a reality that I have to constantly gauge in my own life is to learn when to say no. That's something, and I take responsibility. So when I do something like that, and I allow people into my life that maybe shouldn't be there, or I allow them to take advantage of a situation or me, I gave them permission to do it most times. And so if I didn't take responsibility for that, I would never see change, and I wouldn't be able to accomplish the things that God wants me to accomplish. So that's something like if we're going through something, we need to think it's not always a weakness or your tendency. It could be, something good, maybe used too much or in the wrong direction. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are not necessarily, I guess we don't necessarily take responsibility for sometimes. And when we don't, we can often blame other people. We can blame other things. So if we're not happy in a specific area, like I said, something has to change. But think about this. If you've ever said to yourself, I'll be happy when, and you fill in the blank. When my spouse changes, when my job gets better, when that guy I work with is fired, when I feel better, when my health is better, when my bank account has more money. I mean, we can always say things to ourselves like this, but the truth is those lies we tell ourselves are the reason we continue, like Dr. Phil says, we teach people how to treat us, but we also give permission to things in our life that we don't want there by making what I call excuses or blaming things or somebody for those things. So when we're doing that, whenever we begin to blame something outside of us for why we're not happy, that's a really big red flag for us to pay attention to. And like I was saying, we have this group that I meet with on a regular basis. We've been talking about this for months now, recognizing patterns in our life that seem to keep coming up that we don't want, undesirable patterns, things that bring negativity, and it will take our happiness too if we let it. But the reality is we have to go, we kind of have to go deeper into the why. If we keep making external things the reason why instead of taking responsibility for it, we will not see the change. So even if there's things that challenge us, we need to learn to break out of that kind of thinking. And the truth is unless we do, we won't have a better experience. And I think that's what the goal is. The goal is to have a better experience, more fulfillment in our lives, less stress. And I think everybody could use that. But it really comes down to Y-O-U. And that's a tough thing for people to accept when it's been easy to look out and point our fingers around us instead of realizing there's a few more pointing back at us. We really ultimately have the choice. We ultimately have a choice what we're doing, who's around us, and how we handle things. Okay, so we want to take responsibility. And the reality is we don't want to give our power away to anything or anybody like that, because that's exactly what we're doing when we begin to blame other people or point the finger, is we're giving power to an inanimate object. Like I used to struggle with technology too. This stupid thing's not working, right? I mean, it should work. I paid a lot of money for it. It should just do what I paid for. I know that sounds ridiculous, but the truth is an inanimate object. Am I going to allow something like this to take my happiness away? I have. And how about road rage, or if I show up here at the studio and I don't come early enough to set things up the way that I like, and then I'm not happy with the results, I'm not blaming anybody else. Anybody here will know, that people who work with me know that I may have complained and gotten upset, but ultimately I'm saying I realize it's my responsibility to get here earlier, so I'm not dealing with that. So I'm not saying that I'm perfect in all these things and I've never faced it. What I'm saying is I've taken responsibility for it. So how long the pain lasts is really up to me. And that's true for you as well. All right, so I'm actually going to, let me just tell you, first off, I want to thank all of you who are listening via live stream on Facebook, but also on internet radio. And if you would like to share and like this broadcast, there's even, I think you can have what they call a watch party or something, which I can't do it for my computer, but I think I can do it from my phone, so I'm going to give that a try. And it alerts other people that you're watching. And if you know somebody that struggles, has a hard time with, taking responsibility for their happiness. And I shouldn't say that it's intentional, by the way. It's usually not intentional. So when I say that, it's just another way of saying, okay, we have chosen to do it this way, but we don't have to. All right? So those of you listening, if you want to comment or share your questions or thoughts about what I'm talking about, that's really helpful for me during the program because it helps me to interact with you, helps me to know who I'm talking with. So that, I'm just inviting you into a conversation that I'm having with you. And so back to what we were saying before, there are definitely some things that hinder our ability to be happy, and the most important thing is us. Okay, so I was reading an article that says how to take more personal responsibility, and then in brackets it says, and stop blaming others, because it's so easy to do that. And so a couple of the takeaways I had from this article, which I thought was pretty amazing. I think the name of it is lonerwolf.com. It says how to take personal responsibility and stop blaming others. A lot of times, we read about values, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, but not many people talk about self-responsibility because it has kind of a negative connotation to it. What do you mean I'm not responsible? I'm always responsible. Yes, I understand. I'm not saying that you're never responsible. Obviously, if you've made it to a certain level of success, you have a job, you've raised a family, you're married. Of course, you're responsible. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to keep the things that you've obtained. And I believe that that's true for responsibility. If we want to keep our happiness, we have to be responsible for it. There's one of the things that the author of this says was, my life was transformed when I realized that I was running away from taking personal responsibility for my health and my happiness. And this happened to me quite recently, she said. I had always assumed that taking care of others was the same as taking care of myself. I related to this article so much, as I said in the beginning of this, was because I'm a tendency to be a nurturer and care for people to a fault. And I've taken responsibility for that. And I'm learning when to say no and learning to realize that somebody else's happiness is not my responsibility. Now, I learned this years and years ago. Probably about 15 years ago is when I really learned it. When, from my past, I used to be around people who were very tightly wound, and because of that, whenever they would get upset, everybody would cater to this person, kind of like oiling the squeaky wheel. And so I learned that was how you respond when someone's not happy. You do everything you can and you put everything down just to stop it in order to get back to your life. And I think my models probably weren't very good in that area. Not to their fault. Maybe they didn't know how to learn to navigate it. So again, I'm not blaming them. I'm realizing that, other people have it hard too. They have to deal with things as well. And we all have to learn things, and we don't know what we don't know. So they also said in the article that by trying to take responsibility for other people, their happiness was draining to their vitality, draining to their own energy. And that's true. You can feel constantly tired and overburdened. Even as a young mother, I related to that. 4 young children, also dealing with health issues at the time. There was a lot on my plate. It was by the grace of God that I was able to get through it. So I don't even in finding happiness, I can't brag about it as myself, other than the fact that I was willing to find out what the real reason was through prayer and seeking God on, what's really going on here, that I'm seeing this problem come up over and over again, and that's really not working for me. And then I was able to make a better decision. So when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about why we deny personal responsibility and maybe ways to take that responsibility back. So I'll be back right after this brief message. Please support those who support us so that we can continue to be on the air and try to be a blessing to you. We'll be back right after this brief message.
Little Leapers and Knowledge Keepers Childcare and Preschool offers learning experiences that give kids a healthy sense of self and meaningful connections to the world around them. We teach children from a positive perspective so they learn healthy conflict resolution and develop character. Owner Jennifer Lever has over 28 years' experience in child development. She's helped children learn to read as young as 18 months. Join our happy place where we make happy happen, located in Pinardville, bordering Bedford and Manchester. Call today at 603-491-1780.
Hi, I'm Lynn Greene, Advancement Strategist and owner of AlphaAdvancementStrategies.com. I've been very successful at helping people overcome stressful situations to get immediate results in their personal and professional lives. At Alpha Advancement Strategies, we provide a non-judgmental and supportive environment, empowering clients to focus more on reaching their goals. You can find us on the web at alphaadvancementstrategies.com or call us at 603-860-9260. Alpha Advancement Strategies is where you invest in yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark Major, certified coach and speaker. Join me Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for It's a Wonderful Life, all about leadership development and living a positive lifestyle. Only on In It Together with Lynn Greene.
Hi, I'm Jen Lever, anchor of the Recovery Now segments. Join me Tuesdays at 9 a.m. where I offer support to families struggling with addiction. Hear personal stories, learn the signs of addiction, and get help for your loved ones. Only on In It Together with Lynn Greene.
Back to In It Together in the midst of the good life this morning, and we are talking about taking responsibility for our own happiness. And I've been kind of talking about how not to take responsibility for other people's happiness as well, which was something we can all get caught up in for one reason or another, especially when you have to be around people, certain people, or live around them. You want to be really careful that you only take on what's yours to take on in this life, because if you don't, you end up getting pretty overwhelmed. And we kind of talked about reasons, some of the reasons that I dealt with. If we can think about this, those of you listening right now on the live stream or whatever, make a comment if you've ever said to yourself, "I'll be happy when," and just fill in that blank, and then tell us what changed. What did you change? Usually what happens is we take responsibility for it first, and then the change happens. So we talked about how we can say, well, I'll be happy when my spouse changes, when my job changes, my health or my bank account gets bigger. And that's just ridiculous. I remember when we were a young married couple, my husband and I didn't really have a lot, but we were so happy, and we didn't really need a lot. Our fun was to take a drive, or we didn't have to spend money to enjoy ourselves. We could take a ride and go somewhere. We didn't have to do that. But so what I want to talk about today is, continue on with how to take responsibility. A lot of the reason we don't, there are reasons that we don't take responsibility. And some of them can be basically broken down into 2 categories: the conscious and the unconscious self-denial. In other words, we either intentionally or unintentionally, we try to bypass this responsibility for ourselves in our life, but both of these can overlap. So one of these, it talks about one of the most common reasons for avoiding this self-responsibility includes lack of self-awareness. When you feel kind of disconnected to what really you want, and that can happen a lot. I went through life, I think, for many, many years and never even considered what I wanted because there was so much pulling at me that until I finally couldn't do it anymore and I almost had a breakdown. That's when I had no choice but to take care of myself. I had health issues and things like that. I had to take care of myself and learn to say no. That was really difficult for me when I was programmed in the wrong way to think that everybody's happiness around me was my responsibility. I was a very, very responsible person, but I felt like responsible for the whole world. Like the whole world was on my shoulders. If I saw a need, that it was my responsibility to take care of it. And I know now that no one person can possibly ever be that. And really, I was kind of like, they have like a martyr syndrome. If it's to be, it's up to me. I've heard all the gurus talk like this. And I got to tell you, I've had so many clients that I've had to break some of these mentalities that have been put on them by so-called gurus and coaches and things that it's like, no, you got to know who you are. So if the number one thing here is real self-awareness of what your personal needs are, number one for me is, my spiritual state and my health. Those are very, very important for me. Another thing is my environment, right? What I allow around me or can easily get in me until we learn how to navigate the fact that we don't have to let what's around us get in us. That takes a lot of work. And when I say work, that takes a lot of being conscious of what's going on in your life, what you've signed up for and what you didn't. Because a lot of times there's a lot of, like I said, people putting things on you that aren't yours to take, or people putting you in these boxes and trying to dictate to you what your life should be, and people telling you that your decisions that you're making aren't right for you. You're really the only one that gets that call. You're the only one that gets to have that call. And so many times I feel like when I'm meeting clients that I'm actually giving them permission to be happy and make decisions for their life, even if it makes somebody else unhappy. We are not God. We are not responsible for that. And so that's just one big thing I have to say today. So if you're listening, what are some areas? Think about this. Is this something in your life, or have you recognized in other people this kind of a pattern that for sure you wish that you could say, hey, look, why are you doing that? People feel like that they're not. This is the biggest lie that I've worked with people. I know people that they go to, especially believers, they go to Christian meetings. They're like at meetings 3-4 days a week, and they're feeding their spirit. One of the assessments I do with them is this wheel of life that shows the 8 areas of life, and the spiritual is one area. We also have family, we have health and wellness, we have growth and learning, our careers, relationships, having downtime to have fun. And when I assess people with this wheel, I tell them to give me a number 1 through 10 of their level of satisfaction or fulfillment in that happiness in that area. And many times we'll have maybe a couple that are like 10, especially for super Christians, those are like a 10, and then, a 9 or a 10. And then they have like finances are a 2, and their relationships, maybe their marriage is like a 3, and their career is a 4. And I'm like, well, how's that working for you? That would be what Dr. Phil would say. The reality is the goal is not to have a 10 in everything, but the goal is to have a round wheel, be it a 3 or a 5 or a 7. And it's healthier because if you think about a wheel when you're rolling down the road, you want it to be round. Otherwise, how bumpy is your ride? Okay, so, I believe, I'm a firm believer in, having faith in spending time, and I have my commitments in balance to where I I have time of prayer every day and meetings I'll go to, but I say no to a lot of them. I used to go to everything, and it didn't change my life. Imagine that. It's not what we know. I think that this is a quote I heard before. It's not necessarily what we know that changes our life, but it's what we do with what we know. It's how we apply it. So the first thing we need to know is be conscious of the dialogue that's in your head. What do you tell yourself? And this is what I do. And I'll tell you, if you want to have this assessment and take a real good snapshot, I can sit down with people in about 20 minutes and do a snapshot of what your life really looks like so that you can finally own that and say, oh, I did not realize this is really what I was doing and what I was telling myself was okay. Because it's so telling. It tells you exactly where the holes are. It tells you exactly what's being neglected. It tells you exactly where you're giving too much attention to. And and then you're able to decide by what you're telling yourself whether it's true or not. And that's the first thing is someone told me one time there's an 11th commandment of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not fool thyself. And I've taken that on my life, saying, whenever situation I'm in, if I take responsibility instead of looking for something or someone to blame, then I can find out the real reason behind it and then find out how God would handle that. To me, that's the real remedy here. So the first thing that I did was get clarity about what I want. And some of the things that have helped me is to realize that I have what I need already in me. The Word of God tells us that we have everything we need for life and godliness. So any thoughts of lack, I don't know why this sounds like it's going out. Any thoughts of lack or feeling like we're missing something, what's it, FOMO, fear of missing out? The volume seems low on this. I don't know. See if you can hear it, okay? Sorry, I'm asking my tech guy. So anytime we feel like that we are missing out on something, we need to really reflect and say, is this really, if God says I have everything for life and godliness, and I am telling myself that I'm missing something and I'm lacking something, then the problem, again, I have to take responsibility for that and say, okay, I need to find out what it is, and God will reveal it to you if you humble yourself and let yourself learn that. The next thing is be willing to learn and grow in what you want for your life. You need to decide what you want for your life. And like I said, it wasn't until I was almost middle-aged before I came head-on with that. And I've told this story before. I'll do it really brief, but I left a company that I was with for 4 years, and I started applying to jobs. I applied to like over 130. This was like in 2012. 130 jobs, had some interviews. Finally got this place that I wanted, a job where the manager, I knew the manager there. He loved me, introduced me to another manager who loved me. And they said, you'll be great for this department over here. Go over and talk to this person. And I went over and talked to the person, and she didn't like me. And she said, well, is there any questions before you go? I said, yeah, when would I be able to start? And that was the first time I had a positive attitude to this whole thing. The first time I got really discouraged. It was this person said, well, actually, we have other people to look at. Like she was just kind of like, yeah, I just kind of went through the motions with you, but I really am not connecting with you. So I went out to my car, and I was kind of like, how can I keep doing this? I'm so frustrated. And I really audibly heard God in the midst of my frustration say, what do you want? And I was almost arguing like, I don't know. I can't keep doing this. And he said it again. What do you want? And for 2 weeks, this thing just rang in my head, and I realized I don't know what I want. So here's the thing. If you don't know what you want, how will you know if you get there? If you want to be happy, you got to know who you are and what you want. So I had to realize what I need is already inside of me. I had to be willing to learn and grow in what I wanted for my life, but I first needed to know what that was. And then I had to start taking action in the things that I knew to do. And so that's what it was. I ended up going back to school as an adult, which I didn't want to do. As a matter of fact, I told God, I had tried to make this bargain deal with him, and I'm sure you guys have done this too, where I said, well, okay, well, I'll tell my husband. He'll think I'm crazy, and I won't have to do it at all. But clearly he said, if that's what he said to you, then you need to do it. And that's where I was like, okay. So it took faith too. So it takes faith in taking action. It's not just taking massive action, which we hear a lot of the gurus say, but it's taking action in faith, knowing that you heard from God and that He's going to bring it to pass. He's going to help you go through it. He's going to give you the grace to do it. He's going to give you the provision to do it. He's going to give you the opportunity to do it. There was 5 things, but I can't remember the other thing. But anyway, as I've mentioned in the past, I used to live my life with a to-do list, and I finally threw that thing out. Really, once you get a vision for who you are, what you want, where you're going, what God said, and trust Him to do it, make a stop doing list. And then begin to stop doing the things that keep you from being able to do that and be happy. Another big thing for me was my environment. I realized that our environment is more important to our happiness than we realize. If I like to use the analogy of a greenhouse, where plants need a certain type of environment to flourish. And it protects them from all the harsh elements. It protects them from all the, the weather and being too hot or too cold. It's perfectly temperature controlled. And so our home should be this. Our home should be like a greenhouse. Our place of work should be like a greenhouse. As a matter of fact, I am actually over a greenhouse here, so this is actually pretty prophetic for me. And my name is Greene, so green is new life and flourishing and moving forward, and I'm excited about that. So, today, as we talked about taking responsibility for our happiness, I just want to tell you, take a real serious look at what you've been telling yourself, how you allow external things to affect you, and realize that you can take your power back. And your happiness is completely up to you. And when I say that, it's you and God. And, the Word of God, there's no separation between us and God. And when we realize that, then we can have His mind, we can have His heart, we can know Him through His Word and understand that His promises for us, as He says in Jeremiah 29:11, is that I know. One version says, I know the plans that I have for you. But another one says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you. Thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. And we want to stand on what He says to be true. Let God be true and every man a liar, because the truth is what sets us free. And so that's pretty much what concludes today's program. If you've enjoyed this, leave a comment, share a story, something. I'll always be able to respond to you later on. But that concludes today's program for me. If you want to join me tomorrow for Recovery Now, we're going to have a special guest. Jen Lever is on assignment, so we're going to hopefully be able to have a call-in tomorrow on Recovery Now. And so that's about it. So enjoy your day. Have a blessed day. And remember that we are in it together.